Mm.
So,
Yeah,
welcome
hello.
everybody. Welcome
Hello,
everybody
hello,
to the
hello.
second episode of Unboxing New Music with Boon Hua. And today we have a very special guest, Wang Chenwei, and I'm
Hello, hello.
very happy to have him on. Um, just a quick introduction of how we met. We actually met at a composer's corner in Yongshuto. So I remember it was two composers kind of talking about their works. It was Tan Chan Boon, which I know was a teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
also Peter Edwards. And they cannot be more uh, uh, not alike because their styles are very different. And from there we got to know each other. And I was very happy last year. I finally got to conduct one of your pieces, Sisters Island, during the SCO
Mm-hmm.
workshop. So, Chenwei, would you tell us more about yourself and how you got into music?
How I got into music? Okay, actually, if when at the time I was like in primary school, if I want and my parents wouldn't have thought I would ever become a professional musician. So it's not we are not like those families where the parents send their kids to learn piano or violin at age 4. Um, so actually, I just on my 6th birthday, I got a toy electronic keyboard as a birthday present, and I just anyhow pressed keys, press as in like with the index finger, press melodies on it, and then it was a very interesting keyboard because the black keys were fake. So if you press C sharp, you will still get the C. It was like really super amateur kind of keyboard, but that's my first experience with music anyway. So yeah, then after that, eventually I got a bigger toy keyboard that had real sharps and flats, and then so I continued to press like melodies on it, and then so like around age 10, then I started actually taking piano lessons. Yeah, and then in secondary one, I joined the Chinese Orchestra, and so I was assigned to play the Ruan, and which at the time I didn't know what kind of what instrument it was, but anyway I just assigned it. So then I that's how I started on Chinese music.
And I guess if I were to describe your compositional voice, I think it really it's a very unique voice that reflects this multicultural aspect of Singapore. And I'm wondering how do you develop yourself from your start in secondary school playing the run, and then eventually going on to doing music in Vienna, and then now being back here in Singapore, teaching both in NIE as well as with the TENG Ensemble.
Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, I think it was probably during okay in my secondary school days I started composing, and so actually so just now you talk about Mr. Tan Chan Boon. So actually I met him by chance at a concert, and then somebody said, okay, this is a Singaporean composer, and then so I said, oh wow, so it's so all the while I've been like composing like tunes on my own on the piano, and then I think since now that I met a composer, I should actually take lessons, serious lessons, and see what it's like. And so that's how I like 拜他为师 lah. So I went to study with Mr. Tan Chan Boon, and so that gave a great boost to my composition skill, which previously was like just chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5, and then chord 1 and chord 4 and chord 5 and chord 1. So it made a big difference to when I after I studied under him. And so during my Chinese orchestra days in secondary school, then I actually started composing pieces, just for as a like a hobby, like for fun thing. And then I had the two pieces was played by the RI Chinese Orchestra, and I conducted those two my two compositions. So that's how I actually got started composing for Chinese orchestra. And then eventually, so by extension, then I gradually expanded to composing for SCO, Singapore Chinese Orchestra. So the first piece that they played was in 2005, a piece called Xinjiang Rondo. So I think actually at that time I didn't really realize it, but at the time I was just composing, okay, just for fun, just, and then since there's orchestra, then to who can play, then I'll just write for the orchestra. But now if I look back, I think one very important thing that enables the career of a composer is actually the ecosystem. So that means, right, you need to actually make a career as a composer, you need a group of a community who actually has a demand for your music, or who wants to play your music, and when they want a new composition, they actually want you to write it. I think that's very important, because you um and that's how actually through this Chinese orchestra CC, actually I unknowingly developed this a place in this Chinese orchestra ecosystem, that such that eventually more and more Chinese orchestra people actually wants me to write compositions. uh, yeah, so I think that is quite important, and it would be the likewise for band composer or choir composer. They will need choirs and bands who want to play their works. And let's say, for example, if a band wants to commission a new piece, they wouldn't be thinking of me as a first choice, because I'm not in the band ecosystem. They won't be they would be thinking of some composer who is familiar with the band community. Yeah.
But I think one reason why one reason why I'm very curious about this series is also because I wanted to introduce voices that are in one ecosystem to another ecosystem. And I think it's a shame that we don't exchange enough. Of course, there are composers that write very, very beautifully, for example, for choir, or who write very, very beautifully for a small ensemble. But I think it's really a pity that when other musicians, they don't know more about, because all you composers have a very distinctive voice, and no matter you write for which kind of ensemble, and you'll be really ashamed if you don't try to explore that. So maybe with that note, then would you tell us more about kind of your studies in Vienna? Why do you choose to go to Vienna? Because it does seem like your compositional route has been rather more focused on Chinese orchestra. Why not to China, where that could be a training system that would be more suited for this particular genre?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I mean, in the earlier days, I didn't want to just fix myself as a Chinese orchestral composer. And actually, in the first place, when I went to Vienna, I didn't even the first course I actually signed up for was actually sound audio engineering. It wasn't even composition. Yeah, so the thing is that I thought that composition is something that actually you don't really need to. Okay, at that point, I thought it's something that you don't necessarily need to study in a conservatory. Whereas something like audio engineering, you do need to, because there's a lot of equipment involved, and different kinds of disciplines involved, that you can't just self-study, or study with one teacher through private lessons. Okay, so so when I was in Vienna, actually, then I realized that so because the record audio faculty and the compositions and the conducting faculty is under one institute. So we share a lot of the similar lessons, like the counterpoint music theory analysis lessons. Yeah, the German, European tone meister tradition, the sound and recording engineers have to study the same counterpoint and harmony and analysis as the composition students, which is might not be the case in some other part of the world, where they just learn the technical aspects of how to connect the cables. So and then okay, also one of the reasons that I realized that actually some of the credits that I take for recording can actually be used in a composition course also. And then I also attended some composition class concerts, and then so I I signed up for the composition exam also, and then then I also got into a composition course.
I see. And
Yeah.
so So was it
Okay,
all in German?
yeah, it was all in German. Yeah, so but the entrance exam was in German also. You know, like they don't look at the O level certificates and all that stuff. It's just the entrance exam, and that's it. Yeah.
Maybe this would be a short story between Chenwei and I. The first time I met him, like I mentioned, I told him I used to work in Poland, and so
Yeah,
he told me, "Oh, mówisz po polsku?" And I was
yeah,
just completely shocked. So he
yeah.
just asked me, "Do you speak Polish?"
Język polski jest bardzo trudny. It's a very difficult language.
Yeah, and so I was just
Przepraszenie.
wondering. Oh God, I was just wondering what your interest in language. How did that manifest also in your musical language?
Okay, so actually I try to do a lot of how to say try to look for generally I try to look for things that topics that other composers have not much largely not explored very much before, and so that often leads me to like you know ethnic music, like you know, from India or the Middle East, Malay ethnic music. And so when dealing with this uh, music from different music traditions, then a lot of the resources are in a native language. And also that okay, so for example, let's say one of the pieces I composed was called Rama, based on the Indian story of the Ramayana. And so I decided to use like Sanskrit, some Sanskrit chants in that piece. And so to be able to use those chants, I need to know a bit of Sanskrit. So actually, I went to like study, learn Sanskrit to have a basic understanding, so that actually I can actually pick out the chants and use them in the correct way. Yeah. Um, so okay, so other users of the language. So for example, I last year I composed a piece for Macau, the Macau Chinese Orchestra, and so my research involved like traditional Portuguese music, especially a form of music called the fado. And then some of the resources about the fado, you can't Google it in English. Like you Google it in English, you can't find it. And then I went to learn Portuguese for that. And then some of the resources I needed like was only available on the Portuguese Wikipedia page on Fado. And then some of the websites were also like exclusively in Portuguese. So yeah, so I think having knowing different languages is definitely a bonus for my composition work.
That's very interesting. And also, I think one aspect of your distinctive compositional voice is also about folk culture, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how you like to. I mean, it's very Bartok in a way of it's not collecting, but just kind of having the taste of. It doesn't always have to be an original folk song, but it has a taste of that, which I see very much in your music. So maybe with that, we can kind of pivot towards your violin solo piece called Thaipusam.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And maybe you would like to tell our audience maybe what that is for audience that are not from Singapore or from this region. What is this festival Thaipusam, and what kind of inspirations you had when you were composing this solo violin piece?
Okay, so Thaipusam is a festival celebrating the event where the Lord, this god called Lord Murugan, received a silver spear from his mother, who is also a goddess, and then he used this spear to kill a demon. So and then it's like a big festival that's celebrated in Tamil speaking by Tamil speaking people. So this piece actually is one of four pieces which are called theme the festivals of Singapore. So you know, it's like recipes, pints of Rome, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I
Fantastic,
did a
fantastic.
festivals of Singapore, and so there's a one Chinese piece, one Malay, one Indian, and one
Western.
piece that is like Yeah, I mean the because if you have CMIO, right, so the all others is up to interpretation. Yeah, so what the fourth piece is I did was National Day, which is basically a festival for everybody. Okay, so this Thaipusam, so actually I went to um, uh, there was once I just bumped into the Thaipusam procession in at Dhobi God. You know, the procession actually goes carries on like for the like whole day and passes through like the area outside the Sota School of the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found it very interesting, and then it's like you know, it's such a seems like such an important event and such a large scale participation. And so the next year I actually went to like just I noted the date, and then I actually went to visit the temple where the procession starts and
Mm-hmm.
follow the whole procession route
This
to
is
the other
Serangoon,
side.
right?
It's yeah, somewhere around that area. Actually, more like the Dhobi God.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, it's mainly around Dhobi God, but then is there's like the route goes from one temple to another
Mm-hmm.
temple. Yeah, so basically this is in Chinese we call it or in English like you know sort of a field work to you know get a feel of the atmosphere, and
Mm.
so because it's a South Indian thing, and so I decided to use like elements of Carnatic music in this composition.
And if you don't mind me just interrupting you, just to give a general
Mm.
idea about Thaipusam for our fellow listeners who are not from Singapore, it's a very colorful festival, and where there's a procession of people who in what do you call that?
It's a
Uh
kabaddi. So like
yeah.
kabaddi, there's they carry this I don't know how to call it this things with spikes piercing through into the body. So that's some kind of devotional offering to the gods. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. It's kind of religious, but at the same time very colorful. And then they're
yeah.
also where they kind of run across a hot coal, right?
That one is
Oh, sorry,
Timothy.
that's a
Timothy.
wrong. Yeah, I apologize. It's a
Yeah.
different festival.
Another
But
occasion, but it's
mm,
also a Tamil celebration. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the most important thing is just it's a real spectacle when you see
Yeah,
it on the
it
streets. You know,
definitely it
it's
is.
hard to ignore it, and that's something really beautiful that we see here in Singapore. So shall we just play the music now, and then we can talk about the various rhythmic patterns that you used?
Mm. I'm thinking actually shall we just could you show on the screen like the call there that I sent? Okay, so
Sure,
the reason is that that maybe we have a look at that first, then when it occurs in the piece, then you'll know
absolutely.
what's happening. Yeah,
And this is
okay.
just the first two lines, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me
Okay, I'm
just do
looking at it
this.
on my other screen.
So here this is.
Okay, so yeah, okay, basically this is okay, the thought process behind also this and also by extension my other compositions is that if I will first find a subject matter that not many people have done before, and then I will research about the characteristics of that kind of music and find some like special features that I can use in the composition, my composition. So some distinctive features that are different from you know what our familiar Western music. And so in when studying about Carnatic music, I found out there are some very interesting rhythmic patterns. And I mean, there's been quite a few viral videos of going on circulating online also of those this person who claps and then is sing trance very complex rhythms. And so one of the most popular of those people is the this guru named BC Manjunath. And so I found a YouTube tutorial where he explains how this Korvai rhythmic pattern works. And then so I transcribed the YouTube lesson. Okay, so this thing goes like this. Okay, so we have this clapping, this thing called Adi Thala. So it's an 8-beat cycle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and so this Korvai goes like this. Ta gu ta jum ta ri ta jum ta ri ta ka di na ta di gi na tom ta di sorry, I was distracted by this. Let's try that again. Okay, ta gu ta jum ta ri ta jum ta ri ta ka di na ta. Hey, wait a minute. What am I doing?
Ta, di, gi,
Okay, so,
na,
sorry. So
do, ta.
yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was confused by the okay, never mind. Let's ta gu ta jum ta ri ta jum ta ri ta ka di na ta di gi na tom 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 ta. Okay, so this is how the one cycle of it works. So it goes back to the start of the cycle. Okay, so now we uh, let's see what are the unique features of this Korvai structure. So first you see that there's this from the fourth bar onwards, there's this accelerating pattern. So it's like 5 times dotted crotchets, 5 times crotchets, and then uh, 5 quavers times 3 times of the 5 quavers. Okay, so there's this accelerating structure. And then secondly, we note that each phrase, if the phrases alternate between on beats and off beats. So you see the ta, di, gi, na, dong, the first time is on the on beat. And then the second time, the 5 crotchets is on off beats, ta, di, gi, na, dong. Then after that, the ending 2 bars is off beat, ta, di, gi, na, dong, then ta, di, gi, na, dong on beat, and then the last ta, di, gi, na, dong on off beat. So this on off on beat changes also adds to the tension and the excitement, because it's like, you're being unsettled. Let's say, and this only works because there's 5 of each notes, or odd number of each note. So if you have actually like 4, let's say you do like 4 dotted quavers, and then 4 dotted crotchets, and then 4 crotchets and 4 quavers, it doesn't work, because it would be ta di gi. So it's like ta ka di mi ta ka di mi ta ka di mi ta ka di mi ta ka di mi. Then you end up like a Western sounding kind of rhythm. It is or rather a squarish kind of rhythm. You don't get this effect of this rhythm that is unstable and always like leaning one way or the other. Okay, and then after that, the starting phrase. Okay, very importantly also to note that the first 3 bars are a very regular kind of rhythm. So ta gu ta jum ta ri ta jum ta ri ta is a regular or squarish kind of rhythm that establishes the pulse of this framework, and then you start to have this irregular rhythm coming in. That so because of the establishment of the regular rhythm, that you feel that the irregular rhythm is like a cross rhythm. Let's say if the whole thing was all irregular rhythm, then you will think maybe it's like 5/8 and 7/8 and that kind of thing, right? So this is like the main features of the Korvai. And so when we see this composition, then you will notice when I use this kind of concept in the composition, then you'll see how it actually relates to what I learned from the Korvai.
Great. So let's go play the music. I think everybody's dying to hear it. So let me just jump to it right now. And this one. Oops. Okay. Bravo.
Thank you. So that was Dai Eileen, the top prize winner of the National Piano Violin Competition.
This
Yeah.
was last
Okay.
year,
So,
right?
anyways, yeah, this was last year, December. Yeah. So this piece, it was one of the pieces I wrote for the competition, uh, actually we actually have a national Indian music competition also. So while writing this piece, I also have to make sure that it's playable by a normal violinist without too much. They don't have to go for Indian violin lessons to play this piece, and so actually it's also Western in many ways in the kind of writing, and also to reassure the participants that they didn't sign up for the wrong competition. Yeah. So
You know,
yeah.
sorry, I think this is such a wonderful piece that if there are any Singaporean violinists listening out here, I think this is something that will be really wonderful to do as a kind of an encore. Imagine like a symphony orchestra concert, and after a big concerto, and then you come out and you present something that is uniquely from your country. And I mean, this is kind of the trend. I mean, there are some, I cannot remember, there's this Finnish violinist who, after playing Sibelius violin concerto, in the encore, he will play a Finnish folk song, and a completely fiddle style. And I think that's very important in defining who we are as both a country and also as a musician, taking inspiration from your own people. So yeah, that was really, really wonderful. Um, how
Thanks for the promotion.
No, no, I really think so. I truly believe in it. How about the melodic materials? Like, obviously the rhythmic materials you have explained already. How about the melodic materials? How did you, because you obviously write in the very tonal style, and how does that how did that come about? Is that a conscious choice that you want to remain in this language?
Mm-hmm. You mean like that means overall that I compose tonal pieces rather than
Hmm.
atonal pieces.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I think well, okay, in Vienna actually I did like what most conservatory composers actually did. So compose atonal pieces, and my for one of my graduation works I actually composed a piece that is has 48 unequal divisions to the octave.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just equal temperament, it's not just quarter tones, but there's a whole formula on how to derive intonation system. Okay, so then after that, I think what I feel is that now that everybody is doing okay, or rather most professional composers are going in the atonal direction, which of us the whole movement started out, it was like the composers they wanted to actually do something different from what was done previously, which is all the classical music tradition until the romantic tradition that was mostly tonal and based on functional harmony. And so composers want to do something different, so they came up with atonality and developed many different directions, spectral music, clusters, extended techniques, all those kind of things. But then at this point, I feel like if I were to do something like that, there's not much special things that I can say, that is unique or that would make a lot of difference or is very different from what has already been done. And so I try to look for things that if there's already 100 people doing, then maybe I'll do try to find something else to do. And so actually I revisit um, look at so what else can be done with tonal music actually, and that is something that the Western composers wouldn't be thinking of, or mostly wouldn't be thinking of, because there's this assumption that the everything that can be done in tonal music has already been done before, which but there is one thing that actually hasn't been much explored, and that is the area of ethnic style. So as I've often said in my articles that I write, that the main focus of so Western music is based on discrete notes and harmony, right? So you have, if you're one teacher, do re mi, and then you have the harmony below it. Whereas in most ethnic musics, the focus is more on the ornaments and the glides and the melismas rather than the pitches themselves. So like let's say if I try to sing an example that is should be known to some Chinese audiences, like there's this theme song from the 水浒传, so it's a TV show. 大河向东流啊，天上的星星穿北斗啊，哎哎啊哒哒当当当哒哒哒哒哒哒哒。So if something like this, if you for a Western year, I mean, if they try to think about it, they will just round off to the nearest note. So it's da dee da da dee da da dee da 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 dee dee da da da. It's an entirely different feel, because the whole style of this piece comes from all the glides that and if you round them off to the nearest note, then it's like just like entire almost like an entirely different piece, right? So that is an important thing about a style that is not very much considered in the West, and that is due to this classical tradition that just entirely focuses on the discrete features, and also the reliance on notation. So because it's so reliant on notation that all the analysis, composition, all is all based on things that are notatable. And when people encounter music that is hard to notate or impossible to notate, then they don't really know how to go about handling it. And then then so in the end, this area of research gets left up to the ethnomusicologists, and composers don't usually deal with ethnic musical styles. And so this is, I find, that is one area that is not explored very much, and so that's one area that I think there's a potential for research and potential to create a new music that is different from what we usually see in like European conservatories.
Yeah, no, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really fantastic. This kind of research, and I think that's a really perfect bridge into talking about Aleppo, which is your Sanxian Concerto,
Mm-hmm.
and in this next piece that we will listen to, you also make use of these kind of ethnic scales that are not I don't know if tonal is the right word, but they're not perfectly tuned to what the Western scales are. There are some similarities, but like the kind of a three-quarter tuning. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, or if you want me to show the slide, which I think would be very enlightening for everybody?
Okay, yeah, I'll talk about it while you show the slide.
Yeah, let me put that
Okay,
out.
so some musical traditions are actually microtonal, in the sense that they don't follow the Western tuning system. Okay, so Western tuning right now the most commonly used is equal-tempered. So the octave is divided equally into 12 parts, and that is used on the piano, of course. But there's also just intonation and Pythagorean tuning. So whether it's equal temperament, just intonation, or Pythagorean theory, to Western ears, it all sounds like so-called E-tune. That means like your pitch, let's say your mi, the third scale degree can be a bit higher or a bit lower, but you still sound like it's the same note. And but once you start deviating too far off from any of these three systems, then to the Western ear, it sounds like it's
Out of tune.
out of tune, or like if it's used in a ethnic music context, then it's a microtonal thing. And by the way, I would like to add that Indian music isn't microtonal. Okay, despite all the misinformation, okay, and misunderstandings of, there's this theory of the 22 Shrutis, which there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So I actually presented about this topic for my graduation exam, and the conclusion is that Indian music is not microtonal. They think of the same features as the Westerners do. Okay, and the derivation is very long. So if you're interested, you can ask me about it, but you'll take like half an hour at least to explain why is that the case. So I won't explain it here. Okay, but Arab music is definitely microtonal, because and how one of the ways to define whether the music is microtonal is that for me, right, I would say is that if you play a tempered note, it will be a wrong note. Then that shows that the music is microtonal. Okay, so let's say
maybe I should
okay.
show this slide instead.
Okay, I'll open up this slide on my
This one,
other
right?
screen.
This is the three-quarter tone interval.
Okay, I think we can go back to the previous slide. I mean, we just show the tone, the normal or like the chord. Okay, so these are the genes is in Arab music is like a tetrachord, but it can also consist of 3 notes or 5 notes. Okay, so this is part of the Arab music theory, and for primer for Western musicians, these are the genes that use the notes that are familiar, that the Western musicians are familiar with, right? I mean, you can read them here. And then so a maqam is like a scale, or like the similar concept in Indian music will be the raga. It's not just a scale, but also a whole system of how the piece is like developed, how the melody develops, yeah, and some stylistic connotations too. Okay, so if we explain the Western major scale, minor scale, and harmonic minor scales in terms of maqam and genes, and this will be the explanation, the lower score. Okay, so like the major scale will be the genes ajam and the genes ajam. together, one after the other. Okay, then let's look at the next slide now. So now we have also have 3/4 tone intervals, and so for example in a Jean's Ras you have this E quarter flat. So I'll try to play the sound of it.
Oh wow!
Okay, this is the Sanxian, by the way. Okay, so
you guys are so lucky.
Okay, so okay, let's maybe look at the Bayati, which is a third one. Okay, so there's a Jean's adjunct which is D E F G. Okay, D E F G. Then there's also a Jean's chord which is D E flat F G. Sorry, that wasn't Jean's adjunct. That was Nahawan. This is Nahawan. Okay, to be precise. Okay, it's a 5-note Jean's. Anyway, so okay, these are the notes that will be familiar to Western ears, and this Bayati has this E quarter flat. Right. Okay, so let's say if this piece is in the Makam or the tonality of the piece is in Bayati, and instead of playing the E quarter flat, you play an E flat. Okay, then to an Arab listener, then you are like playing a wrong note. Yeah, so it's not like there's some kind of like the intonation is a bit higher or a bit lower, that kind of thing. It's like if you play E flat or E natural instead of the E quarter flat, then you end up playing another scale.
I
so
see.
that is the characteristic of the one of the characteristics of the Arab music.
So, I mean, all this information is really, really fantastic. But I just want to take a step back and just think and talk about what were your inspirations in creating this piece? Because of course, I think when we talk about Aleppo, all of us will remember that very haunting picture of the boy. And I just wanted to ask you, what were your kind of emotional responses to the entire situation?
Yeah,
That
I think so actually for this piece I wanted to just find another topic that is like not very much done before, and even including by myself, and then how I came to this idea of doing something Arab is because Sanxian is the only fretless common pluck string instrument, right? So if you have like P-part, you have frets, you can't play the microtones. At least it's very hard to do so. And this is the only common pluck string instruments that has no frets, and so you can play all the microtones. And it was a commission by Taipei Chinese Orchestra to compose a Sanxian Concerto, and there's like there's no the topics open-ended. I can choose anything I want.
okay.
So actually I just thought of this Arab theme, and then also at the same time on my mind is the Syrian civil war, which is like we've been singing on the news like since 2011, and it's like almost like never ending. And it's I think it's what I wanted to express, also like through music draw attention to some like real world issues. It's not like say the music. Of course, there's music for music's sake, but I also like to show that it's not just like music is entirely separate from the real world. There's also would also like to do compose something that's relevant to the actual world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe, sorry, I think my headphones are a little cranky. Maybe with that, shall we listen to a little bit of Aleppo?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just get that out. Okay. So this is, Jianwenbing 老师.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I just uploaded this onto YouTube yesterday, so the full video can be seen on YouTube, but let's just see an excerpt here. shall I voice over to do some explanation about the piece simultaneously?
I think we just let the music play first.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
This entire piece is 15 minutes, if I'm not wrong.
18, yeah, 17, 18 around thereabouts.
17, 18
yeah.
minutes. And I just wanted to let all our audience know that Chenwei has very kindly made a version where you can see the score and also this video online. So I will paste the link after
Mm-hmm.
this Facebook Live is done, and I will put up all the links that he has so kindly did. I just wanted to take the last 5 minutes just to open up the floor if there's any questions or any comments for Chenwei. There was one comment that I read from Raymond Wong, and he was saying that you should compose some Peranakan music as well.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's how would you comment on kind of the evolution of Chinese orchestra music? Because I mean, this piece it's so unique because it uses some of the Arabic scales, but at the same time, you know, it still fits within a very comfortable Chinese orchestra context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So as I've said just now, the European music tends to be based on discrete notes, and while ethnic music is more based on the ornaments, the slides, and all that. And so that also applies to instruments and also applies to the musicians. So because Chinese musicians in their usual training of playing traditional Chinese pieces, they are very used to playing slides, ornaments, and because you know in Chinese music there's each area has its own unique style. So you know there's each province has a different kind of flavor, and so the musicians are also used to playing music of different styles. And I give the Chinese orchestra something like a Indian or Arab or some other ethnic kind of style piece. They can pick it up very quickly, right? Because their ears are attuned to listening out for nuances in the lights, in the nuances, in the ornamentation. So even if they've never heard Indian music before, and I just compose write an Indian piece with a score, and then I notate the slides, and then maybe they go and listen to a few recordings of instruments. Okay, good. Then they can get it and they can play it, like reproduce a flavor quite accurately. Whereas for Western musicians, it is a lot more tricky because if the whole lives they've been learning to play discrete notes, you know, and they have to be learning when you change position, you cannot produce a slide. You have to change position cleanly and all those kind of stuff. And when they encounter this ethnic music, then they will probably it's very hard for them to get actually try to find how to express it like in the style that is appropriate for their music. And so for that, we see that in some pieces that have arranged, like I have a piece called Confluence that was a Chinese orchestra piece that also arranged for symphony orchestra. And so when a symphony orchestra musician play, then I have to take a lot of effort to explain, you know, how to do the slide to make it sound like it's like a Indian flavor. And the instrument actually there is also a large influence also. So because, for example, like on the violin, if you slide on the violin, you have to press down a fingerboard and you slide. So the pitch is like a very constant kind of pitch. You know, the slide is almost like if you press, you use a synthesizer and turn the pitch bend wheel, that kind of slide. Whereas on the erhu, because there's no fingerboard, so actually there is also the depth of pressed string has an effect on the timbre also. So let's say maybe one of the slide you might be the starting point and the ending point are like firmly pressed down, and the middle transition is lightly pressed down. So you have a da, da, so you know that you have a lot more nuances in the slide as compared to a violin slide that will be da, like it's a very direct kind of sound. And so that's why I think the Chinese orchestra has a greater potential to perform different kinds of ethnic music as compared to the symphony orchestra.
That's fabulous. And I just like to take this opportunity to plug in Chenwei's book, the TENG Ensemble Guide to Chinese Orchestra. And sorry, did I say it correctly? I hope I...
Product placement here.
You have it conveniently behind. Yeah, I think this is really an important, one of the most important texts that describes Chinese orchestra music in English for a large audience who previously are not able to understand because of the language barriers. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, just wanted to wrap up. I think it's your distinctive voice in researching all these various cultures and kind of bringing them back. It's really quite unique, and in many ways a true reflection of this multicultural society that we live in. Just a question before we end, along those lines, what piques your interest in all these cultures? Like what's your next culture that you want to learn more about, and what about it that attracts you?
Yeah, I think how to say, in general, I'm just interested in various cultures and seeing like the world beyond what we are familiar with, and it doesn't matter which culture it is. Yeah, so we have such a big world, and actually no matter which culture we look at, there's a lot of cultural treasures that we don't know about, and that's waiting for us to discover.
Yeah, great, fantastic. I think with that we should probably conclude this, and it has been a real pleasure having you to I mean, I've learned so much, looking at your slides and also about the various skills. And I was trying to sing, to be able to sing the 3/4 tones. And it's really difficult for someone that's kind of ingrained in a certain system already.
And so take a module on Arab training, Arab oral training.
Yeah, it's funny because what I was trying to do was I was trying to sing a second, and then I try to tune it flat a little bit, and then I try to sing a minor third, and I try to tune it sharp, which in a way it's a little artificial. I remember seeing some who was it? Was Jacob Collier, and he was saying, oh, how he does these kind of subtones is like he finds two notes, and then he just says that I'm going to divide these two notes into 3 parts or 4 parts that is unequal, and then he just does it. I'm thinking, wow, that's not easy.
I think if you listen to a lot of Arab recordings of Arab music, you will get it naturally. Yeah, it's a listening thing, because if you don't have it in your ear, then naturally it's very hard to reproduce that sound. Right, I mean, for this piece, I listened to like hundreds of recordings of Arab music, and also read like hundreds of pages of research on Arab music theory. So actually, it wasn't easy to compose something this style, or because at the start, it's like everything I did was like it doesn't sound anything like Arab music, and then so like after like few months of digestion, then I finally like was able to compose something that actually sounds like those recordings I hear, as in the style of the piece that sounds similar. So it takes a process to digest. It's not something like you just say, okay, I want to do this, and then it just happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so for you, really, composition is also a research process into finding out and digesting, and then eventually, putting in your own language.
Yeah, I think it's not just for me. It's for all most composers, contemporary composers. It's a research process. Because each person has his own interest. So maybe some might be on mathematical models. Some might be on particular unique extended techniques. And so actually almost every composition is a unique product of research. And then that's how like actually we contemporary composers, like living composers, so I would stress living composers, stay relevant, because the composition is actually a very probably the most competitive career in the world, because not only because our competition doesn't come from the living but from the dead, and they
A lot
and
of
they
dead composers.
yeah, a lot of dead ones, and they undercut our rates by providing their works for free. So definitely we have to come up with unique ideas that the previous our predecessors haven't been able to do. And now that with this globalization, it's very easy for us to actually venture out to understand more about other cultures. And so I think this globalization in the music is also a sincere reflection of our current times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one objective of me doing this series is also just to expose to non-composers about what are the how difficult it is to compose, and what are all these procedures and all these compositional thoughts. So, in some ways people appreciate it much more than just expecting it to just magically land on the page in front of them. And yeah, great. Well, with that, we will conclude today's interview. Thank you so much, Chenwei, and thank you for everybody listening into this unboxing new music with Boon Hua. And just one last thought to leave with everybody is that living composers are awesome because they're just only a phone call away. So remember that. Thank you very much. See you all.
Yeah, thank you. See you, everybody. Bye-bye.